Hello, everyone. Let me just identify my mouse here, but I think it will not be necessary, but that's okay. Hello, everyone. Good morning. Good day for whoever is in a time zone different. Uh, I My name is Ricardo says, thank you, and I want to first thank you everyone for the opportunity of being here today presenting, and thank you also for the effort in putting this event. Uh, uh, in the situation that we are living, it's very important, and I realize that it's been a huge effort to do this, and so thank you very much for that too. And today I'm going to talk about, as you guys can see, I make just a very little modification in the title. Uh, this is explained because when I proposed to talk about the content that I did a few months ago, I understood that that could just be encompassed in a paper, but later I realized that I had to do with two papers in order to talk about what I wanted to talk about. So basically, the matters regarding doxastic and propositional justification were left aside in the paper, in a different paper. And here I'm going to be talking about more of how attention could fit in a very specific part of the debate concerning epistemology of memory. So just to give a, okay, it's not messing. I somehow lost control of my own computer. Okay, oops, coming back. Okay, I'm sorry for that. So I'm going to first give you a background of what is my general intention here. In a few months since I finished my PhD last year, I decided to take part in what recently being called some as the attentional turn in many areas, in many different debates in philosophy. So a number of different philosophers have recently advocated for putting attention in the center of different debates. I have John Gennari, for example, who gives the priority of attention in the analysis of mind. So he's going to talk about how attention has an explanatory power that would help us understand many questions in ethics, philosophy of mind, and epistemology. And you have more specific participations or more specific contributions that is just like Montemayor and Fairweather, who say that we should just make an attentional turn in epistemology, give attention a fundamentality in epistemology that would help us deal with many of the problems that we have in a different and a bad way. And a great number of works have appeared in the last decade. And I cite two here because more is going to appear later in my talk. And Jennings is the most recent contribution that I'm aware of with the Attending Mind, a great work that discussed a few other things like attention and self, the identification of the self through attention. So what is my plan today? The first part of my talk, I will try to argue that in the debate concerning memory epistemology, we should consider attention in the regarding the questions that we have today. I'm trying to argue that there is a missing point in the debate that should be considered, and that this missing point is properly addressed if you consider the participation of attention in this debate. In the second part, I will try to give a rough understanding of attention, or in the sense of how attention should be understood in order to make this contribution that I'm referring to. In the final part, talk about remembering attentively, which would be the insertion that I'm working on. This is the first time that I presented this paper in public, and I'm beginning a discussion here, so that if we can progress on the matter. So a few assumptions that will not put in question here is that first, remembering that B is factive. You can't remember something false. It's just like you can't know something false. So this is something that's going to be assumed in the debate, and I'll keep it here. We're talking about the specific type of memory, declarative memory, which is episodic, which is a non-propositional character, and epistemic memory, or semantic memory, which is propositional, mostly propositional. You remember that be what we usually call remember that be. Another broad assumption that we see constantly debated is epistemic reliabilism, in the sense that you consider a belief epistemically justified, or you consider to know a proposition, and it is issued from a reliable source, which means that this is a source that issues more true beliefs than false beliefs during a certain period of time. So these are things that would be assumed from the start. Where I want to make my contribution is in the debate concerning epistemology, but a very specific part of this debate too, which is the dispute between preservationists and generativists. I mean, it's the discussion about whether memory generates positive epistemic status, or if memory just keeps a property that arises back in the past, and then you get justification or knowledge or rationality from other sources. I will explain better now. But I will constantly address two cases in order to make my point. And one is the overload driver, and the other is the city counted. And I will refer to these cases many times during the talk. So in the first case, we have Clifford, who makes a commute of 1 hour and a half to work. And usually when he's making his commute, he has a divided attention, and he's just an overload of information through his cognitive apparel. And only later, when he's talking in the following morning with a friend, Phoebe, she asks whether there is a construction on part of the path that he takes when he comes to work. And then he calls to mind and remembers that there is a construction that takes place in a part of the road. And by responding affirmatively to the question, and by comment because of the question, he adds that he will take some action in order to avoid that. So this is the first case of overload driver that is usually that was put forth initially to a certain view of memory epistemology. But as I will talk about it, you can take this example, this case, in different ways. The second case is city counter, and it is a case in which someone is in the middle of a large, oddly shaped movie theater and is waiting for a movie to begin, and then decides to figure out how many people could be seated. He makes a rough calculation, right? And the conditions are not so good for this calculation, but luckily he gets the number right. And he says that there are 606. Later he tries to remember what exactly is the number of seats, but he can't, he forgot. But he could say that he remembers that there are more than 500 seats. So he believes, based on his memory, that there are more than 500 seats. So how is that these cases could be seen epistemology of memory? You could just take preservationist account of these cases in which you would say that in a time one, let's say in the moment that Clifford is driving, or where Gene is counting the seats, he forms a content, or he forms a belief, even if it's an unconscious one, and this belief already has some positive epistemic property, and that from this time on, the memory will store the belief, and later when he treats the belief, memory will fulfill its role and give him a belief that was justified back from another source, like perception, for example. This would be the preservationistic. I will explore more of this in a moment. And you have a generativist view of this, which says that it only at time t2, I mean, when Gene remembers how many seats he sees there, And only when Clifford is asked by Phoebe and calls to mind the the construction is that they properly realize a true belief, and then justification comes and comes to be only in this second moment. To put this in more specific terms so that we can understand the differences that mark generativism from preservationism. The basic difference here, the dispute is in the prima facie versus the prima facie justification. So the point is for a preservationist, a prima facie justification, which is justification that you get right from perception, usually visual experience, is a justification absent defeaters. I mean, you have a belief, the belief is properly formed, and absent any problems in the belief. I mean, any evidence that the belief was more ill-formed, or the belief has counter evidence for it, you have a prima facie justification. And I'm sorry, if you don't identify any defeaters, then you get prima facie justification. So for the preservationist, memory issues only, or not, but it's only capable of leading an epistemic subject towards ultima facie justification. Prima facie justification is something that you get from visual experience, for perception, from any other source. You won't get it from memory. Generativist, this is not the case. You can't get prima facie justification from memory. You don't need to heavily rely on other source. All that you need from other source is a content that is going to be encoded back there in the three phases of memory that we saw beforehand in the event, as encoding, storage, and retrieving. So all you need is encoding of a content. Memory can help you form a belief from the content storage, and then you get justification in the prima facie justification. Memory is capable of generating this. And I want to put here these different views in a more specific way, in a sense that we have here a debate over the epistemic role for memory. I mean, we have a debate about how memory guides an epistemic subject towards epistemic positivity status. So we can say that in our system of belief, there are beliefs that you get from vision, right? And that these beliefs have an imprinting of visual experience, and that you the view that you justify beliefs, or you get to know beliefs through visions through visual experience in a certain way. And that should be our specific way that you could get justification through memory, right? And or that you could memory could help you get these things. So for a preservationist, memory is solely a bystander, and performs only when maintained epistemic positive status. For a generativist, you have two visions. You can say that memory rectifies a content from T1. This is the case of Jim. Jim has his belief that was ill-formed in a previous moment, counting it's in a very poor environment, and then through time, memory will work on this content and delivers a content that now is true in a reliable manner. And you can have also a case in which memory witnesses would be something issuing from a theory like Kellyan works in the simulation theory of memory, that memory actually not only generates beliefs, memory also generates a new content. And when memory generates a new content, it generates also reliably. So the role of memory is a role of reconstruction of a content in the past. You add new content, but you don't add randomly any new content. You add in the sense that allows you to get some justifiably. So these are epistemic rules from memory that these views attribute to remembering. And here I'm going to start to make space for attention in the debate. And the way that I'm going to do this is appeal to a very, I think, intuitive point. You don't maintain everything that you remember, even if you're defending preservationism. You maintain a selective part of the content, and in generativism, you can say that not everything is processed, only a selective part is processed, and you get something like this. And in generative case is the same thing. I mean, there is an apparent selectivity of memory here taking place. And this would be a point where attention could take part. But the thing is, we have to be careful here, because the same selectivity could be identified in perception. The same selectivity could be identified in different situations in our cognitive apparel. And this is what is commonly called the overburden explanatory problem of attention. It looks like that you get to identify attention in a tune of cognitive phenomena, right? And for this reason, so it looks like you haven't identified attention, right? It's like attention is everywhere, but it looks like you can't figure out what attention is. And this is a very specific problem I'm trying to address here. And I will do this by relying on the few topics, I mean, on a position from a few authors in a very large debate. So much of the variety. I discussed this in the paper, but here I will not bring it. And I will take two basic positions here, which is one from Allport, and he says that there are four main understandings in neuroscience and cognitive science that about attention. It's either in a personal level as a relationship between observer and object, or in a system level, it's a relationship that extends integrating brain, body, and environment. And here, the point is, what Allport wants to say is that attention is an emergent state that you have, right? It's an emergent state that you get when you are attaining to something, you applying resources in order to do this. And there is a competition among demands that you get from the environment or even from your cognitive system. And attention happens when part of the stimuli is shut, and another one is concentrated on one stimuli. And there is a metaphysical interpretation of this, which is given by Moll, which is he makes a comparison with the unison, which would mean that looks like an orchestra. You don't get if the orchestra is playing properly. You only look for this or that musician. You have to look at a whole. So attention is something that should not be identified in a specific processing in any other area, for example, but it should be seen when all the resources necessary to perform a certain task are applied in that task. And he applies something that I will not explain lengthy here. It's an adverbial approach, which means basically when you are executing a task attentively, you are modifying this task. I mean, perceiving attentively is a modification of perceiving. So this is basically the understanding that will work here with attention. And two other elements to go to the final part is attention can be oriented from two ways. One is bottom up, which is the sensory environment can direct your attention to the surroundings, or your goals, your desires could also be a top-down biasing. And this is more or less what commonly is called an endogenous and exogenous attention. So, very attentively, how that would be something in the debate regarding epistemology of memory. One thing that should be important for us here to remember is usually when we talk about epistemic properties, we are talking about how the epistemic supervenes on non-epistemic. This is famously defended in Sosa. One of the famous defenses of this was in Sosa in 1980, and when he talks that when we talk about the explanation of epistemic property, you should consider the non-epistemic and should arrange in a way that could allow the emergence of epistemic property. And my point is, observing the cases through this perspective, we could say that there is a missing element in the description of how memory generated positive epistemic status. So returning to the case, what are the situations? I think that the importance of Phoebe's question and Clifford's goals are not taken in consideration, proper consideration in the exam formulation of the positions regarding epistemic positive status issued from memory. Phoebe's question is highly important for Clifford to remember, to place in view the memory of passing through the question in the day before. She triggers the memory that he has to recall in that moment. Also, his goal in making the best journey from his house to his work also influences that. So what I'm saying is that this should be taken into consideration, the interaction that Clifford has with Phoebe. And something that we don't identify in Jean's case, exactly what I'm saying is why Jean tried to recall the number of counted seeds. What prompted Jean to do that? It's not out of the blue. He must have been asked, or there might be a case in which we could have asked Jim if there is at least 600 seats in the theater, and if he asked what he remember, could we say that he remembers truly? But the fact is that there wouldn't be a case of justification because he's not attending to the demands of the context. So what I'm saying is that these are cases where we can see top-down or bottom-up biasing of attention, and that we should say that attention here is a non-epistemic necessary constituent to how an epistemic positive status emerges in remembering, right? So what putting this here is the tricky point that I think, I don't know if I fully worked this, is that there is a reliability here to be explained that is not taken consideration attention and should be taking consideration attention. And this is remembering attentively should be the best way for us to understand how the reliability here emerges, right? And this should be an unconditional reliability in the sense that input doesn't have to be true. The input doesn't have to be justified for memory to issue a justified belief. And what this means that when we have a reliable attention, we don't need another source to do this, as long as remembering could bring up to the question. And to bring in a conclusion and saying what is that this means that there isn't a more specific robust depiction of this interaction for a proper epistemological memory. I could say that we have here a case in which generativism is favored. If you take attention and consideration, preservationist loses even more sense for us in the debate. And at least what we can say for now is that the role of memory should be not only the one of generating content and belief selectively, which I think that attention guides us to do this, but to put us in a position to successfully insert a content of the past in the present context. That's more or less what I had to say. I don't want to take off the time. I thank you for your patience and for everything. I will just... Okay.
Thank you very much, Allysson. We are open now for questions. I have a first. Are you considering, you mentioned top-down, bottom-up about attention? So are you considering like theories like predictive processing, accounts of attention, like there's this bottom-up, this top-down? So attention is considering like a precision, like a measurement. So I can have for example, a cocktail party like this that's happening now. I need to pay attention to your talk and discard as noise so like they consider as a precision. So do you think that that's compatible or?
Yes, so I have here in mind, so what I can have here is the integrated competition hypothesis, which is the point that issues from, it's a theory, it's a view that issues from a future integration hypothesis. So what is it is the following, right? You just attend to something when you bind the features of the experience together. So just keep running. Come back to the case. Clifford was just having an overload of information driving on the road, but only later that he will, through the question of Phoebe, that he will actively binding the memory images that he had back then, and will say, okay, I saw a construction there, but this without the attention, this was all fuzzy, that was all disconnected for him. Only later that he does this, when he apply all the resources that he has, is that something comes up as a structured image. Okay, there are questions about if conscience and attention are together. This is something that I'm not addressing here. I would not be able to take part in this, but basically this would be the view. I mean, I'm thinking about a moment where you are, let's say, your whole organism is just coming to concentrate on one task of binding those elements together in that moment. So this would be attending not a specific process, but more of a whole integrated. I mean, these are the words of Alport, a whole integrated body organism. So more or less, it wouldn't be predictive. I don't know if this could be considered predictive processing. I consider my reading still very not lengthy in the debate, in the concepts under science. The first thing that comes to my mind is the integration competition hypothesis in those three principles of neural network computation and aggregations. More was what I have in mind now. I don't know if it is, but thank you for the question. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, there is. I always read attention, and there are very different concepts. Yes. So more like cognitive, more very low level perceptual.
Yes.
We just have another question here. So small. Let's see. So from Ana Paula de Carvalho Gomes. How do you consider distorted memories or false memories? What kind of epistemic contribution could they provide, if any?
I'm just sorry.
I read
yes.
The wrong. It's from Giorgio Airodi.
Yeah, there is this question by John Airodi, and there is the question by Ana Paula, I think. So I will answer Ana Paula, who was asking why we can't remember something false. Well, this is largely a simple debate, and there is well, this is more going in the direction of philosophy of not epistemology specific, but more of a discussion about what I would say confabulation, theories of confabulation, and we have here causal theories of memory and simulation theories of memory. But the position largely says that we should treat remembering as knowledge. I mean, remember something should be similar to knowing something. We don't know something false. That is, we don't know that P is because P is a fact, right? So when you remember that P should also be related to the fact. If you say that you remember that P, but P is false, this should be taken more as imagination, for example. This should not be considered remembering exactly, right? But there is a large discussion here, and that you could go through. I assumed this. I assumed in the sense of working in tandem with all the debaters in the contemporary discussion. But basically, it's this: if you remember B, it's similar to knowing that B is factive. If you say that remember that P and P is false, it's another cognitive operation that you're having. And I hope this answers. And the question about Giorgio Airodi is distorted memory or false memories. It goes in a similar situation. But let me put it this way. I think that at the approach that we have regarding attention, that in the epistemology of memory tends to favor epistemology of memory like Michaelian's, in which he is assuming a simulation theory of memory. So it's very much okay for in the view of Michaelian's that memory not only generates belief, but generates content also. So it means memory generates a certain content that wasn't present in the moment in which the experience happened. And all that matters in this case is this happens in a reliable manner. I mean, this does not go in the direction of distorting the perspective of a person regarding the world. You know, as long as this happens, this would be satisfied in the discussion. And about the epistemic contribution that they could provide, I think there is epistemic contributions. But I'm sorry, I don't feel prepared to answer you. But the first thing that comes to mind is the book that was launched this year by Louise Bertolotti, I think their name, that the epistemic innocence of false beliefs, I think, or the epistemic innocence of irrational beliefs. That has a large discussion on that, and I'm really curious about going through this because it's the perfect project that I really admire and I follow, and I would like to learn more. And I think that in the work that they have, we could identify a path to answer your question about the contribution that they could provide in the sense. But that I hope this could give a direction, a possible answer for you. And thank you very much for the question.
Thank you very much, Allysson.